jibber jab, bamboozle, nuka noozle, bippity bop, she-gall. You jibber jab, bamboozle, nuka noozle, bippity bop, she-gall. I mean, you keep on talking, but you don't know where to turn it off.
Welcome to the weekend. I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute. You're watching Independent Thinking. Well, is it Hickenlooper running? We'll find out. From the Republican side, Dick Wadhams, good to have you back again.
Nice to be here.
You are party chair of the Republican Party.
I am.
You've actually been able to hold this job longer than most jobs. How long have you been doing this?
Second term, 3 years.
Oh, it pays well.
On my fourth term.
Good company car. And from the Denver Post, Chuck Plunkett from the editorial board. Thank you for coming out. Now let's do a little mea culpa here. We are taping this Tuesday afternoon, and every 3 minutes or so we pull out our PDAs to see what's going on in Massachusetts. I'm going to work on the assumption that Senator-elect Brown has won the race. I think that's the way this is going. Let's bring that to Colorado before we go into if McGinnis is better off with Hickenlooper as an opponent. What is win or lose? What does the Massachusetts fight say to you?
Well, it says to me that it could be more difficult in Colorado than I thought it was going to be only a few weeks ago, when I was guessing that even in a Ritter-McGinnis matchup, Ritter could still prevail. Now that we've seen that kind of intensity out of Massachusetts, if that same dynamic were to take place here several months from now, it's going to be awfully close.
What does it say about Colorado?
Chuck's right. If unaffiliated voters are swinging so heavily Republican in a state like Massachusetts, they're going to do the same thing here in Colorado, and we've already seen polling to indicate that that's the case here in Colorado.
In Massachusetts, Obama took Massachusetts by 26 points.
Yes.
Massachusetts doesn't have a single federal delegate who's a Republican.
That's right.
And more importantly, if this is a referendum on health care, Massachusetts has the closest thing to Obamacare in it, which is their Obamacare, which is government puts a gun to your head and says you will purchase a private sector contract on insurance. If not, we will force you, and if not, we'll penalize you. If this guy can win there, what does it say about the Obama administration? For me, it says they've fallen into the trap of going too far, too fast.
And I agree with that. But to come back to just Colorado, the question I think to ask is, will the national mood play out in the Colorado's governor's race? We're not talking about a Senate race in Colorado where the health care legislation is at stake. We're talking about the governor's office, where Colorado's budget, Colorado's struggles with big deficits for the past few years are in play. And the question, so far we haven't seen a clear set of alternatives out of the McGinnis camp, but we've seen a proven track record over time of Mayor Hickenlooper dealing with tough deficit situations in Denver.
Before we get to Hickenlooper, let me just say, what was your reaction when Ritter pulled? How surprised were you? I was pretty flabbergasted. I believe you wrote a column a couple weeks ago.
That's correct.
Where you predicted that Michael Bennet would lose to Jane Norton, and that Ritter would beat McGinnis. And I said, yeah, that sounds about right. The power of the incumbency here is a remarkable thing. That seemed right. I was shocked when Ritter left to spend more time with his family. Were you?
I was surprised, but not dumbfounded, John. The fact of the matter is that Ritter found himself as the weakest incumbent in 50 years. I mean, the last time a sitting elected governor had been unseated was 1962, and I could argue that Governor McNichols back then was far stronger than where Ritter stands today. So I wasn't that surprised.
But he was still well liked. Those of us who are politicos by nature, we look at Ritter and we say, boy, this guy has been a lousy administrator. Compared to Owens, Romer, Lamb, people who knew how to run that office, even people in his own party would admit privately that he's not a strong executive. And so we knew that. But people outside, we love our governors. We like Ritter. People almost to a point say he's a great guy. He's a great guy, but so would he have lost?
I didn't think that he would. I thought he was going to win, but shortly after I made my little New Year's Day prediction, the mood of the country has so changed, or at least I've become so aware of its change through the Massachusetts race that I don't know if Ritter could have won.
Let's just put it out there, this leaving for family reasons. Now, every time I've heard of a politician who's leaving for family reasons, it means that something's happening that he doesn't want. And there's been a lot of chatter popping up about, there's always the extramarital affair, and personally, I don't think that would take him out if that were the case. I don't think people care. I certainly don't care. Is there something else that you guys are expecting to pop out of this story, or was there something else there?
Let's face it, John. If he was up by 20 points and Obama still had 70% approval rating, he wouldn't have been pulling out. He pulled out because he couldn't win, or he thought it was going to be very tough to win re-election. He didn't have it in him to fight for that, and so he pulled out. I think that's the sum total of what happened last week or 2 weeks ago.
Nothing more than that.
I really don't think there's anything more than that.
Any skinny on your side?
No, that's my take on it as well. That he must have done a very sober assessment of the situation and realized that it just wasn't going to be a good year for an incumbent Democrat.
One qualification with what I just said. I still think there could be more shoes to drop on the Corey Voorhees case. And I don't know if that's a follow-up in the FBI investigation into some of the contradictory statements that were made in October and November by the Denver District Attorney's Office and by Villafuerte, and there could be more on that, but I don't know what that is, or if that will even happen. But that's the one qualification I would lay out there.
Now, the day after he pulled, and the day that Mayor Hickenlooper said, "I'm going to run," you came up with the term. Now, you're good with terms. Now, you didn't call him a lawyer lobbyist. That wouldn't work out so well. But you called him Hickenritter. You've tried to do what I think the left did very successfully by pushing Bush and McCain, saying they are the same person, different hairstyle. Explain your term and why you decided to push it out there.
Well, first of all, let me go back to some earlier discussion here. There will be national implications in this race. Where was Hickenritter just a few weeks ago? Copenhagen, pushing the cap and trade agreement with President Obama. Think about just a year ago in February. Where did Obama sign the stimulus package? He was right here at the Museum of Natural Science here in Denver. Who was standing beside him? Hickenritter. The fact of the matter is there are national implications in this race because of what Hickenlooper has done. But in terms of bringing it back to the Ritter administration, we don't have the foggiest idea of anywhere where Hickenlooper disagrees with Governor Bill Ritter. And everything that Bill Ritter has done, John, can be reversed and repealed by a Republican governor and Republican legislature. The property tax increase, the vehicle tax increase, the union executive order handing state government over to union bosses, the repeal of the Byrd-Arvestal spending limits, the release of felons early from their parole or from their sentences. The fact of the matter is that we have no idea of any disagreement between Hickenlooper and Bill Ritter. They're the same. It's Hickenritter running for governor of Colorado.
They're the same, Chuck. They're the same.
Those are some good points with Copenhagen. But since then, we've seen Hickenlooper coming out and saying that cap and trade is actually not the best way to address global climate change. He has recently said out on the Western Slope that he didn't really approve.
He could find the Western Slope?
He made his way out there. In fact, he worked there for quite some time in the early 80s, which he's also trying to capitalize on. I think it's a great detail that he almost lost a finger while working as an engineer trying to replace a pipe on some kind of gas rig. That kind of cred is stuff that McGinnis isn't going to have. But he said that he didn't approve of the way that the Ritter administration put together the commission that changed the oil and gas rules and thought that you had to have reasonable rules. And that's something the industry is already reacting somewhat warmly to. On the executive order regarding the unions, Hickenlooper was not a fan of that. I don't know that he's been public about that, but I think a lot of people who are close to Ritter, Hickenlooper will tell you.
Watch out, he's going to say Hickenritter by the end of the show.
It'll happen before the end of the show. Will tell you that he wasn't a fan of that and was concerned about how it could affect business in the city of Denver and government business in the city of Denver as well. But my point is that